Hi folks, this is your MWIS planning outlook with our latest longer range thoughts. Some better news in the forecast as we have high pressure building towards the weekend, and mid-October is looking a much more settled prospect. The middle of this week though still has a strong westerly wind across Scotland and damp Atlantic air moving in with low cloud, rain and drizzle across the Western Highlands throughout much of Wednesday. Smaller amounts of rain spilling inland and eastwards. Higher cloud bases, particularly in the morning across more eastern regions, but that base will lower and cover most higher terrain increasingly as the day goes on, and that will be down to lower slopes near to western coasts. A windy day too across the Highlands, increasingly windy with gales developing across higher mountains as the day goes on. Breezy for northern England, but a drier, brighter picture here with some sunshine and well-broken cloud. The remnants of a front clearing south across Wales at dawn may just give some dampness at first, but that's soon clearing, the cloud lifting and breaking across the Welsh mountains readily. Temperatures are relatively mild, near to average, but will feel cool in exposure to the wind, particularly across the Highlands. Into Thursday, and high pressure is toward the southwest, but we're still stuck with this strong westerly flow across Scotland at this time. Still gale force across the hills and mountains much of the day. Strongest speeds will be toward the north and very gusty in places downslope toward the eastern side of the major hill groups. A weak trailing frontal zone across Scotland will once more produce a lot of low clouds and drizzly dampness, particularly in western regions. Areas toward the far north could just get into slightly drier air, slightly cooler conditions relatively as well, and that might just allow the cloud to be somewhat more broken, but I think around Skye that's the boundary to go back into the rather murky conditions and the dampness. Eastern areas of Scotland faring somewhat better for brighter skies, but cloud often covering many high tops. Windy too for northern England, and less windy further south you go into Wales. Some banks of cloud, largely dry, but some drizzle may just come in to western hills at times. Our area of high pressure is expected to build gradually northwards into Friday. Lighter winds for many, but still across northern Scotland in particular, a rather blustery and gusty westerly wind will continue. A generally dry story, but still that scope for some low cloud to be affecting western hills in particular, and some dampness in the air. Just fine drizzle mostly, but a nuisance nonetheless, particularly near to western coasts. England and Wales seeing some brighter skies coming through. Could be that first thing in the morning some low-level fog and banks of cloud will allow the higher tops to be just above the fog layer, above an inversion just trying to develop, and that could be a theme that continues onwards into the weekend. The greatest scope for inversion conditions on Saturday will once more be across England and particularly Wales underneath the centre of the high. Some of that fog will thin and break in lower elevations through the morning. There may just be a few banks of cloud then drift upslope and cover some higher terrain at times, but overall it's a fine day with some sunshine breaking through and light winds across these areas. Further north across Scotland, the wind not as strong as midweek, but still rather blustery across more northern regions, and here away from the centre of the high there is the greater risk that cloud is more shrouding the hills and the higher terrain is covered with some drizzliness again, maybe just around some northwestern coastal districts, but by and large it's dry. There's some bright conditions, best of breaks in the cloud, and clearer summits would be found more across the eastern portions of the Highlands. As our area of high pressure continues to expand further northwards, then by Sunday there is a greater chance of seeing inversion conditions and the higher tops poking through above a cloud sheet, even into Scotland by this time. The fly in the ointment, if you like, is just the remnants of a weak frontal zone, which some models do a little bit more with, but underneath the high it will be a fragmenting, weakening feature that could just complicate the cloud story somewhat, as a footprint of moisture in the atmosphere just hangs around, and it could just lead to some stubborn areas of cloud throughout the daytime. But light winds overall, it's a more promising prospect in terms of being out on the hills. The question mark we have then is just how much sun or how much cloud, and whether you have that scope for an inversion. Keep an eye on the forecast for that. The ongoing story then into next week is going to be one of the mistier, mellow side of autumnal conditions, as a big zone of high pressure is expected to influence our part of the world. The high becoming centred further northwards with time, keeping things generally settled, stopping anything coming in from the Atlantic. So a dry, quiet, settled theme is likely, once more with some fog and low cloud around at times, with inversion conditions quite possible, and that will vary in location and extent of cloud from day to day, but there should be a good deal of sunshine as well. Some cooler nights if skies do clear, could even be a touch of frost in a few spots, but light winds will be the common theme of the week. With time it might just go more easterly as we see the high centre a bit further northwards. That breeze could just freshen a bit then over England and Wales as the week goes on. Further forwards through the second half of the month, we like to see high pressure become focused up toward the northwest, and this could just allow a chillier northerly airflow to try and get in from the Arctic. That is open to question how far that gets, but something a bit cooler beyond the middle of the month does look likely. Still a fairly quiet weather story. We're not seeing the Atlantic storms steaming in at this stage. It looks like there could be some low pressure towards the southwest of us, but that looks rather weak at this time. So still a relatively quiet weather story. Just a few showers. It could be we see the higher tops in Scotland dip to freezing point under a northerly airflow if that does manage to set up. Some better prospects then overall in the next couple of weeks. Enjoy that if you can. That is your planning outlook. Thanks for watching.